Hello, ladies and gentlemen. I welcome you all to Quest IAS, where quest for UPSC is made easy. My name is Michael, and I've done my BA Economics, and I also cleared TGPSC Group 1, and I'm basically waiting for my appointment orders. I'll be dealing with the subject economics, but before going into the subject matter, or ఎలా చదవాలి ఏం చదవాలి సిలబస్ ఏంటి all the stuff, which will be obviously covered in the due course of these lectures, let us start with a small story. ఒక చిన్న కథతో let's start. So the date is 29th October of 1929. ఏం జరిగింది ఆ రోజు? On the day, the stock market of USA collapsed. Right. And this is the Wall Street where the trading of the stocks happened. This is the Wall Street of USA. The Wall Street of USA began to panic. The people are on the roads. They've lost all the money they invested. The banks lost all the money they invested because banks also used to invest in the stocks back then. You can see the stock market crashing on October 29th of 1929. ఇది వాల్ స్ట్రీట్లో ఒక సీన్. వాల్ స్ట్రీట్ ఆఫ్ యూఎస్ఏ. Papam, this poor guy, the rich poor guy, is trying to sell his $10,000 worth roadster at mere $100. Why? Just keep thinking. We'll come back to this later. Cut cheste after the crash. Cut cheste 4 years తర్వాత in 1933 somewhere in Germany Mananna Hitler he assumed power. Okay. After he assumed power, మళ్ళీ కట్ చేస్తే 6 సంవత్సరాల తర్వాత after 6 years, somewhere in Germany and Poland border, a war started. Dear Hitler is trying to annex Poland. You can see the fighter jets, you can see the battleships, you can see the artillery getting loaded, the tanks, the war. Right, this is Germany Poland border. And with this began what is called World War II and its aftermath. World War II అయింది. తర్వాత ఏమవుతుంది? Obviously people die. The bodies were piled. This is the aftermath of the World War II. These are the prisoners of war, the soldiers of Russia. This is how they were treated in Germany by our dear Hitler. So the reason why World War II happened, in one word, if I want to say, is because of poor economic policies in USA. Sir, ఏంటి సార్ అంత మాట అన్నారు? What is the link between stock market crash of 1929 and the rise of Hitler and the war in Poland and the beginning of World War II? The reason for World War II is because the stock market of USA crashed. Ella, we'll know very shortly. Just bear with me, we'll know. But అది తెలిసే ముందు, let us also know why the stock market of USA crashed. Alright. The stock market of USA crashed because of the poor economic policies of the USA. ఏం సార్ అంత poor economic policies USAలో? Number one, the Federal Bank, that is the Central Bank of USA, kept the interest rates so low. ఇంట్రెస్ట్ రేట్స్ తక్కువగా ఉంటే ఏమవుతుంది? బ్యాంక్స్ విల్ బీ ఎంకరేజ్ టు లైక్ బారో మోర్ ఫ్రమ్ ద సెంట్రల్ బ్యాంక్. ఎందుకు? ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, లెట్స్ సే ఐఎమ్ గివింగ్ యూ 100 rupees and I'm expecting you to pay me interest of 50 rupees in return. Interest rate is too high. Will you take that money? Most of you will not. But if I'm giving you 100 rupees and I'm expecting you to pay me back 101 rupees, then you'll take the money because మీకు పోయేదేం లేదు, ₹1 తప్ప. రైట్ నౌ మీ ఖర్చులు తీరిపోతాయి. సో ద సేమ్ థింగ్, when the interest rates are kept low, banks will borrow more and the people will borrow more. Whenever the interest rates are low, జనరల్గా borrowing will happen. గుర్తుపెట్టుకోండి, ఎలా ఎందుకు అనేది మనం తర్వాత మాట్లాడుకుందాం ఇన్ ద చాప్టర్ బ్యాంకింగ్ అండ్ ఆర్బీఐ. అది. And number two, the banks are poorly regulated in the USA. These are the what? These are the poor economic policies which in result cause the crash of the stock market, which in result give rise to Hitler and his Nazi party, which in result gave rise to the World War II. సో ఈ ఎకనామిక్ పాలసీస్, ఈ పూర్ ఎకనామిక్ పాలసీస్ ఆఫ్ యూఎస్ఏ ఏంటో చూస్తున్నాం, విచ్ ఈజ్ ద రీజన్ ఫర్ ద స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ క్రాష్. ఓకే, నెంబర్ వన్ మనం ఆల్రెడీ చూసాం, ద ఇంట్రెస్ట్ రేట్స్ ఆర్ టూ లో విచ్ ఎంకరేజ్డ్ బోరోయింగ్. ఓకే, దీనికి సంబంధం ఏంటి? ఎక్కువ పైసలు జనాల దగ్గర ఉంటే ఎక్కువ స్టాక్స్ కొంటున్నారు, అది అలా ఉంచుతాం. నెంబర్ టూ, ద బ్యాంక్స్ ఆర్ పూర్లీ రెగ్యులేటెడ్ ఇన్ యూఎస్ఏ. ఈ బ్యాంక్స్ ఏం చేసేవి, వెన్ పీపుల్ కేమ్ అండ్ డిపాజిటెడ్ their money in the banks, these banks use the deposited money or the investors money and invested in stock markets again. సో జనాలు అప్పు చేసి స్టాక్ మార్కెట్లో ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు, బ్యాంక్స్ వాళ్ళ దగ్గరకు వచ్చిన డిపాజిట్స్ని తీసుకెళ్ళి స్టాక్ మార్కెట్లో ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తున్నాయి. అండ్ ఆల్సో స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ బ్యాక్ దెన్ అలౌడ్ బయింగ్ ఆన్ మార్జిన్. వాట్ ఈస్ బయింగ్ ఆన్ మార్జిన్? ఇట్స్ సింపుల్. వీఆర్ జస్ట్ పేయింగ్ ఎ టోకెన్ అమౌంట్. By paying token amount, we are buying the entire stock. ఆ రిమైనింగ్ అమౌంట్, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఒక స్టాక్ నేను కొంటున్నా, నేనేం చేస్తా, 10% ఆఫ్ ద స్టాక్ వాల్యూ కట్టేస్తా. ఆ 90% ఆఫ్ ద స్టాక్ వాల్యూ నాకు ఒక స్టాక్ బ్రోకర్ అప్పుగా ఇస్తాడు. అండ్ వన్స్ నా స్టాక్స్ ప్రాఫిట్కి వచ్చాక నేను అమ్మేస్తే, ఆ ప్రాఫిట్లో నుంచి వాడు మనకి ఇచ్చిన అప్పు మనం తిరిగి వాడికి ఇచ్చేస్తాం, రిమైనింగ్ ప్రాఫిట్ మనం తీసుకుంటాం. దట్ ఈస్ కాల్డ్ బయింగ్ ఆన్ మార్జిన్. సో ఇవన్నీ ఈ పూర్ ఎకనామిక్ పాలసీస్ ఉండడం వల్ల ఏమైంది, పీపుల్ స్టార్టెడ్ బయింగ్ స్టాక్స్. ఎవ్రీ వన్ వాంటెడ్ టు గెట్ రిచ్. పీపుల్ బారోడ్ మనీ, వాళ్ళ ఉన్న ఆస్తులు అమ్మేసి మరి దే స్టార్టెడ్ ఇన్వెస్టింగ్ ఇన్ స్టాక్ మార్కెట్. దే స్టార్టెడ్ బయింగ్ టూ మెనీ స్టాక్స్. అలా అందరూ కలిసి స్టాక్స్ కొంటూ ఉంటే ఏమైంది, టూ మచ్ మనీ చేసింగ్ టూ లిటిల్ గూడ్స్ అయింది. దట్ మీన్స్ the demand for the stocks kept on increasing. సో దానివల్ల ఏమైంది, the prices of stocks became so high. And at a point, ఆ తర్వాత ఈ స్టాక్ అమ్ముదామన్నా కూడా no one is willing to buy at that rate, at that high cost. So what happened? People started trying to sell the stocks at lower price. That is where the crash happened. Okay, సో మనం క్రాష్కి రీజన్ ఏంటి అంటే, we studied that the reason for the crash is poor economic policies of USA. ఇవన్నీ మనకు ప్రాపర్గా మళ్ళీ అర్థమవుతాయి ఇన్ ద చాప్టర్ బ్యాంకింగ్, ఇన్ ద చాప్టర్ క్యాపిటల్ మార్కెట్, హౌ స్టాక్స్ వర్క్, ఎక్సెట్రా. డోంట్ వరీ, విల్ basically cover everything, but focus on the story. The story here is, again, it started as a crash and Hitler raised to power and World War II happened. Okay, so what is the links here? Because of poor economic policies, stock market crash అయింది, that is established, right? ఇక్కడ చూడండి, the economy of Germany is dependent on the loans that USA is giving. After World War I, Treaty of Versailles జరిగింది. According to the treaty, number 1, Germany have to pay war reparations. అంటే వరల్డ్ వార్ 1 జరిగినందుకు జర్మనీ చేసిన డ్యామేజ్కి ఇది తిరిగి ఏ కంట్రీ పైన అయితే జర్మనీ అటాక్ చేసిందో ఆ కంట్రీస్కి పైసలు ఇవ్వాలి. ఓకే, సో జర్మనీ హ్యావ్ టు పే, బట్ జర్మనీ దగ్గర పైసలు లేవు. సో జర్మనీ స్టార్టెడ్ టేకింగ్ లోన్స్ ఫ్రమ్ యూఎస్ఏ. అండ్ వాట్ హ్యాపెండ్, బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ద స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ క్రాష్, యూఎస్ఏ కాల్డ్ బ్యాక్ ఆల్ ద మనీ. సో జర్మనీ దగ్గర పైసలు లేవు. Allied powers are France, UK, Belgium, which fought against Germany in World War I. ఓకే, యూఎస్ఏ ఏం చేస్తుండే, జర్మనీకి లోన్స్ ఇస్తుండే. జర్మనీ ఏం చేస్తుండే, అలైడ్ పవర్స్కి వార్ రిపరేషన్స్ ఇస్తుండే. ఈ వార్ రిపరేషన్స్నే మళ్ళీ యూఎస్ఏకి లోన్గా రీపే చేస్తుండే, ఎందుకంటే అలైడ్ పవర్స్ కూడా యూఎస్ఏ దగ్గర లోన్ తీసుకునే ఈ లోన్ని రీపే చేస్తుండే. ఓకే, దిస్ ఇస్ ద క్రక్స్. సో యూఎస్ఏ లోన్స్ ఇవ్వడం ఆపేసింది, జర్మనీ దగ్గర పైసలు లేవు, ఆల్రెడీ బ్యాంక్రప్ట్లో ఉంది దగ్గర. సో ఏమైంది, ఫ్యాక్టరీస్ క్లోజ్ అయ్యాయి, ఇన్వెస్ట్మెంట్ కావాలి కదా, లైక్ వర్కింగ్ క్యాపిటల్ కావాలి, రన్నింగ్ క్యాపిటల్ కావాలి, ఫ్యాక్టరీస్ నడవాలంటే ఫ్యాక్టరీస్ got closed. Banks failed because the banks in Germany also invested the beauty of it in the stock market of USA, and the value of the stocks decreased, so the banks failed. And unemployment raised by 30 percentage, and hyperinflation అయింది. చిన్న చిన్న వస్తువులు కూడా they used to cost a lot. We'll talk about what inflation is very soon, but bear with me, just focus on the story. So what happened? Germans lost faith in democracy, right? ఇంతకుముందు వైమినర్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఉండేది, దానిపైన ఫెయిత్ పోయింది. సో అట్ ద సేమ్ టైమ్ హిట్లర్ సెడ్, ఐల్ గివ్ యూ జాబ్స్, విల్ విన్ బ్యాక్ అవర్ నేషనల్ ప్రైడ్, will not pay any reparations to the allied powers, France, UK, Belgium, right? Right. So దాంతోని హిట్లర్ assumed power. Hitler came with a slogan, make Germany great again, and people choose Hitler. హిట్లర్కి మంచి మాస్ సపోర్ట్ వచ్చింది బికాస్ ఆఫ్ వాట్ ఎవర్ హీ సేయింగ్, అండ్ బికాస్ ఆఫ్ ద మెస్డ్ అప్ economic situation, and Hitler is trying to show a way. So by then, once Hitler assumed power, what he did, because their unemployment is so high, he started hiring people into army. ఇంతకుముందు ట్రీటీ ఆఫ్ వెర్సాలిస్ అని ఒకటి ఉండేది. వాట్ ఇట్ డిడ్ ఇస్ ఇట్ టాప్డ్ ద జర్మన్ ఆర్మీ టు 100,000 కంటే ఆర్మీ ఎక్కువ ఉండకూడదు అని ఒక బాటిల్ నెక్ పెడుతుంది. దిస్ ఈజ్ ద ట్రీటీ ఆఫ్ వెర్సాలిస్ ట్రీటీని హీ బేసికలీ బ్రోక్ ద ట్రీటీ, అండ్ హీ హైర్డ్ 1,000,000 soldiers. Because he hired soldiers, he also started aggressive expansion. In 1936, he reoccupied Rhineland. In 1938, he annexed Austria, and later in Poland. ఈ పోలాండ్ని అనెక్స్ చేశాక soon enough World War II began. Right. So the crux of the matter here is the stock market of USA crashed, Hitler raised into power, and World War II happened. దీనన్నిటికీ బేస్ ఏంటి? ద పూర్ ఎకనామిక్ పాలసీస్ ఆఫ్ ద యుఎస్ఏ విచ్ లెడ్ టు ద స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ క్రాష్. ఒకవేళ యుఎస్ఏ ఎకనామిక్ పాలసీస్ని రైట్ పెట్టుంటే స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ క్రాష్ అవ్వకపోయి ఉండుంటే హిట్లర్కి ఎంత మాస్ సపోర్ట్ వచ్చి ఉండేది కాదు. దీస్ ఆర్ వాట్ మెనీ intellectuals are debating about, but see, it is always hypothetical most of the times. But let's say the chances for World War II at least would have been reduced drastically. So the economic policies won't just determine the GDP of a nation. It determines wars, it determines famines, it determines technological advancement, it determines power of a nation. Right now, USA is being feared, and it is also called the world's or the global police. Why? Because it is economically so strong. It has $25 trillion economy. Right. So the economic policies decides all this. Okay, this is the story. Now we understood why and what the importance of economics is, and why we should study economics. ఏం చదవాలి? We have to study the syllabus. Right, we'll see the syllabus very shortly, but our syllabus mentions economy. It does not mention economics, right? So what is economy and what is economics? Economy is basically the kitchen. Economics is basically the recipe book. So kitchen lo em chestam, it is where the process of making a dish happens. It is where the theory, like for example how much salt to put in, how much masala to put in, all this is mentioned here. So in kitchen sometimes we make it practical, and we find some interesting things, and we put that in recipe books. The same thing happens here as well. ఎకానమీలో ఒక అనామలీ కానీ ఒక ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్ ఫినామినా కానీ జరిగితే విల్ ట్రై టు ఇంక్లూడ్ దట్ ఇన్ అవర్ అకాడమిక్ డిసిప్లిన్ ఆర్ ఎకానమిక్స్. సో economy is basically the process where the production and distribution and consumption of goods and services happen in a nation or an area, where on the other hand economics is the theory, the academic discipline which says how to make an economy better, what are the policies, how should banks behave, how should the market behave, how should the market be, the nature of the market be. We'll study what market everything is, just the basic difference between economy and economics. So economics is a theory, the recipe book, కానీ మనకి సిలబస్లో లేదు. We rather study what the economy of India is. But before understanding what economy is, we should know some basics of economy. Like, for example, without understanding the concept of demand and supply, it is tough to understand the concept of inflation. Right? Without understanding the law of demand and the law of supply and market equilibrium, మార్కెట్లో ప్రైజెస్ ఎలా పైకి కిందకి వెళ్తే అర్థం చేసుకోవడం కష్టం. అది అర్థం చేసుకోవడం కష్టం అయితే ఆర్బీఐ ఎలా ప్రైజెస్ని కంట్రోల్ చేస్తుందో అర్థం చేసుకోవడం కష్టం. సో బేసికలీ వి నీడ్ ద బేసిక్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎకానమిక్స్ టు అండర్స్టాండ్ ఎకానమీ. రైట్. సో లెట్స్ స్టార్ట్ విత్ ద బేసిక్ డెఫినేషన్ ఆఫ్ ఎకానమిక్స్. వాట్ ఈస్ ఎకానమిక్స్? లియోనల్ రాబిన్స్ డిఫైన్స్ ఎకానమీ బై యూజింగ్ టర్మ్ స్కేర్సిటీ. అంటే అదొకటే అన్నాడు. లెట్ మీ రీడ్ ఇట్ అవుట్ ఫర్ యూ. He defines economics as the science which studies, let me write it down for you, the science which studies human behavior as a relationship between ends and scarce means which has alternate uses. Basically definition బట్టి కొట్టండి, but the essence of the definition is we all have scarce resources. For example, land తీసుకోండి, right? For example, uranium తీసుకోండి. Land is not unlimited. మన పాపులేషన్ పెరుగుతూ ఉంటే మోర్ అండ్ మోర్ పీపుల్ విల్ బి డిమాండింగ్ ద ల్యాండ్. సో ఈ ల్యాండ్ని మనం ఒకటి అగ్రికల్చర్కి యూజ్ చేయొచ్చు, రెండు హౌసింగ్కి యూజ్ చేయొచ్చు, మూడు మూవీ థియేటర్స్ కట్టడానికి, ఎంటర్టైన్మెంట్ పార్క్స్ కట్టడానికి యూజ్ చేయొచ్చు. సో ల్యాండ్ ఈజ్ ఎ స్కేర్స్ రిసోర్స్. అంటే అది లిమిటెడ్ ఉంది, అన్లిమిటెడ్ అని లేదు. సో ఇలాంటి అన్లిమిటెడ్ లేని రిసోర్సెస్ని మనం ఎలా యూజ్ చేస్తాం అంటే వీ హ్యావ్ ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ వేస్ టు యూజ్ ద సేమ్ పీస్ ఆఫ్ ల్యాండ్. అగ్రికల్చర్కి యూజ్ చేస్తే మనకి అందరికీ ఫుడ్ వస్తుంది, హంగర్ డెత్స్ ఆగుతాయి, ఫుడ్ సెక్యూరిటీ ఎస్టాబ్లిష్ అవుతాయి. హౌసింగ్కి యూజ్ చేస్తే ఒక షెల్టర్ వస్తుంది, బేసిక్ నీడ్. అదే ఒక మూవీ థియేటర్కో ఒక ఎంటర్టైన్మెంట్ పార్క్కో యూజ్ చేస్తే మనకి నెసెసిటీ ఉన్న ఐటమ్స్ పైన యూజ్ చేయకుండా ఎంటర్టైన్మెంట్ కోసం యూజ్ చేస్తున్నాం. యూజ్ చేయడం తప్పనట్లేదు, బట్ వీఆర్ జస్ట్ సీయింగ్ ద ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ వేస్ ఆఫ్ యూజింగ్ ద సేమ్ న్యాచురల్ రిసోర్స్. సో రాబిన్స్ ఏమంటాడంటే ఇట్ ఈస్ అ స్టడీ ఆఫ్ హౌ హ్యూమన్ చూస్ స్కేర్స్ రిసోర్సెస్ టు మీట్ ఆల్టర్నేటివ్ ఎండ్స్. ఒక స్కేర్స్ రిసోర్స్ని అలానే యూజ్ చేయాలి అని హ్యూమన్ బిహేవియర్ ఎలా చూస్ చేసుకుంటుంది అనే స్టడీ ఈజ్ ఎకనామిక్స్ అకార్డింగ్ టు లియోనల్ రాబిన్స్. టు పుట్ ఇట్ ఇన్ సింపుల్ వర్డ్స్, ఎకనామిక్స్ ఈజ్ ద స్టడీ ఆఫ్ హౌ పీపుల్ మేక్ చాయిసెస్ because they have limited resources but they have unlimited wants. That is basically the definition of economics. Okay, try to quote the exact definition of Lionel Robbins. Whenever you have to quote the definition of economics, it will score more marks. But yeah, let's see the basics of economics. We have done with the definition of economics. Now, economics as a subject is divided into two fields. One is microeconomics, another one is macroeconomics. Within microeconomics, అసలు what is microeconomics? Number one, microeconomics, micro అంటే small. It deals with the human behavior. Economics అంటే ఏంటి? Study of human behavior on how he chooses what he chooses, because his resource is limited but the wants are unlimited కదా. So microeconomics is dealing or studying the same at individual level. Okay, it deals with the demand, how a consumer behaves, how a consumer buys what he buys, etc., etc. So microeconomy basically deals at an individual level, whereas macroeconomy, it deals at a collective level. For example, a state as an entirety, a nation as an entirety. So let's start with the basics of economics, both micro and macro. Syllabusలో explicitly mention చేసి లేదు, but it's better that we cover microeconomics, the basics, because UPSC Prelims లో questions అడుగుతున్నారు, and especially from the basics of macroeconomics, from inflation, from national income, there are a lot of questions that are being asked in mains as well. So without any further ado, let's start with the basics. That is, let's start with microeconomics. Okay, we thought of the first thought that the first chapter of microeconomics, or the first subtopic of microeconomics, is consumer behavior. That generally discusses about what people buy, why people buy what they buy. అసలు జనాలు ఒకటి కొనాలని ఎందుకు అనుకుంటారు, అసలు అది ఎందుకు కొంటారు, రైట్? If you look at the example of our stock market crash, why did people buy too many stocks? What is the reason behind? Future expectation. That means they're expecting that something will happen in the future, that they'll earn a lot more in future, right? So consumer behavior asks the question, why people buy what they buy. So there are certain factors that determine why people buy, right, what they buy. Number one, income of the consumer, right? Consumer income high unte, he'll buy a lot more things. Low unte, he'll not go and buy an Apple iPhone or a Rolls Royce car, right? Number two, the price of the goods itself, but also again here, price of the goods ఒకటే కాదు, the price of substitute goods కూడా. We'll study what substitute goods is. We also study the price of complementary goods. వీటి పైన కూడా ఆధారపడి ఉంటుంది దట్ వై కన్జ్యూమర్ బైస్ వాట్ ద బై. లెట్స్ సీ వాట్ సబ్స్టిట్యూట్ గుడ్ ఈస్. సబ్స్టిట్యూట్ గుడ్ అంటే ఏంటి? ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, మార్నింగ్ లేసి మనం ఛాయ్ తాగుదాం అనుకుంటాం, రైట్? ఛాయ్ మనకు దొరకలే, ఛాయ్కి డిమాండ్ పెరిగింది. సో ఒక ఛాయ్ ఇప్పుడు 100 రూపాయలు అయింది. అంటే నీలోఫర్లు వస్తే తాగేవాళ్ళు ఉంటారు అనుకోండి, సైకోగాళ్ళు. అదే కాఫీ ఉంది, కాఫీ ఇప్పుడు 10 రూపాయలే కాస్ట్. సో మనం ఏం చేస్తాం? ఛాయ్కి ఎందుకు సార్ 100 రూపాయలు పెట్టడం అని కాఫీ కొనుక్కుంటాం. సో ఛాయ్కి కాఫీ ఏంటి? కాఫీ ఈజ్ అ సబ్స్టిట్యూట్ ఆఫ్ ఛాయ్. బేసికలీ ఇట్ గివ్స్ the same amount of, not the same but almost the same amount of satisfaction, right? So these type of goods which can give the same amount of satisfaction are called substitute goods. Okay, Number two, complementary goods. Complementary goods. What are complementary goods? Number one, let's again look at it with an example. మీరు కార్ కొన్నారు, సరే, లేదా బైక్ కొన్నారు. పెట్రోల్ ఉంది, పెట్రోల్ కాస్ట్ 50 రూపాయలు ఉంది, ఆ తర్వాత 100 రూపాయలైంది, ఆ తర్వాత 1000 రూపాయలైంది అనుకుందాం. అవ్వలే ఇంకా. ఎంతైతే అయింది, నేను కొట్టించేది 100 అనకండి. బికాజ్ 1000 రూపాయలు ఉన్నప్పుడు 100 కొట్టిస్తే బైక్ 1 కిలోమీటర్ కూడా వెళ్ళదు. సో మనం ఏం చేస్తాం, బైక్ పక్కన పడేస్తాం, రామి పడేస్తాం. బికాస్ దిస్ పెట్రోల్ ఈజ్ అ కాంప్లిమెంటరీ గుడ్ టు ద బైక్ ఆర్ కార్. ఇంకొంచెం బెటర్గా అర్థం చేసుకోవాలంటే లెట్స్ గో విత్ షూస్ అండ్ షూ పాలిష్. రైట్, షూ పాలిష్ రేట్ ఒక 250 ఉంది అనుకోండి, 1250 అనుకోండి. షూస్ కొంటామా మనం, పాలిష్ చేసుకోవాలి అంటే కొంటాం, పాలిష్ చేసుకోకుండా వేసుకుంటాం, అది వేరే విషయం. బట్ గెట్ ద ఐడియా హియర్. సో complementary goods are the goods that we have to use to complement, right? To complement the goods we already own. Those are complementary goods. So ఈ కాంప్లిమెంటరీ గూడ్స్ ఒక ప్రైస్ని బట్టి కూడా మనం ఏం కొంటాం ఏం కొనం అనేది మారిపోతూ ఉంటుంది. రైట్, నెక్స్ట్, టేస్ట్ అండ్ ప్రిఫరెన్సెస్ ఆఫ్ కన్జ్యూమర్. దాని టేస్ట్ కూడా ఉండాలి కదా. కొంతమంది ఉంటారు, ఛాయ్ కాస్ట్ 100 అయినా 200 అయినా నాకు ఛాయ్ కావాలి, నేను ఛాయ్ తాగుతూ ఉంటారు. రైట్, సో డిమాండ్ ఎందుకు చేస్తున్నారు, ఎందుకు కొంటున్నారు? టేస్ట్ అండ్ ప్రిఫరెన్సెస్. ఎక్స్పెక్టేషన్స్ అబౌట్ ఫ్యూచర్, లైక్ అవర్ స్టాక్ మార్కెట్ స్టఫ్ ఇన్ 1929. రైట్, ఫ్యూచర్లో ప్రైజెస్ పెరుగుతాయి అని ఏం చేస్తున్నారు, ఇప్పుడు హౌసెస్ కొంటారు, స్టాక్ కొంటారు, రైట్, ఎక్సెట్రా ఎక్సెట్రా, ఇన్వెస్ట్ చేస్తారు. So basically the behavior of consumer is dependent on these factors. Even though if the consumer want to buy a Rolls Royce just because he love it, he cannot buy if he doesn't have that income. Right, he'd rather choose a substitute good like an Alto car which only costs one maybe 2-3 lakhs in second hand, but it is basically a car with 4 wheels, and also the mileage is good. So we are done with the topic or the subtopic, consumer behavior. సో ఇందాక మనం ప్రైస్ ఆఫ్ గూడ్స్ చదివేటప్పుడు we talked about substitute and complementary goods, right? But there are also other types of goods. Let's see types of goods. Number one, public and private good. Public goods are non-rival and non-excludable. Non-rival అంటే ఏంటి? Non-rival అంటే the use of good by one person will not reduce the amount of good available for other persons. సో నాన్ రైవల్ అంటే ఏంటి? ఒక పర్సన్ ఒక గుడ్ యూజ్ చేసినా కూడా, ఒక గూడ్స్ అండ్ సర్వీస్ యూజ్ చేసినా కూడా వేరే పర్సన్స్ యూజ్ చేసేటప్పటికి అది ఏమాత్రం తగ్గదు. సారీ ఫర్ మై బ్యాడ్ తెలుగు. ఈవెన్ దో పర్సన్ యూజెస్ ఎ గుడ్, it does not reduce the amount of goods available for the next person who is using it. Those type of goods are called non-rival. The best example of non-rival good is clean air, sunset. మనం గాలి పీల్చుకొని వదిలేంత మాత్రాన పక్కోడికి గాలి ఎంత తక్కువదు. మనం సన్సెట్ చూస్తున్నంత మాత్రాన పక్కోడి సన్సెట్ చూడలేడు అని లేదు. Even defense is a public good and public service rather. ఒకరిని ప్రొటెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నారు కాబట్టి మిగతా వాళ్ళకి ప్రొటెక్షన్ అనేది తగ్గదు, రైట్? దీస్ టైప్స్ ఆఫ్ గూడ్స్ ఆర్ కాల్డ్ నాన్ రైవల్ గూడ్స్. దెన్ ద నెక్స్ట్ ఈజ్ నాన్ ఎక్స్క్లూడబుల్ గూడ్స్. What are non excludable goods? These are the goods non excludable. These are the goods that you cannot stop people from using even though they don't pay. For example, street lights, for example, roads, even national defense, etc. These all come under non excludable goods as well. So, public goods are non-rival and non-excludable, but private goods, on the other hand, are rival and excludable. That means a private good, for example, I bought a water bottle, that is my good, and I drank it. Because I'm using that good, the availability of that good for the next person is decreased or completely absent, right? Those kind of goods are called rival goods. For example, private property. I bought a home and it is my home. I can stop people from using my home. I, I can stop them, right? Because it's my home. These kind of goods are called excludable goods. So, first type of goods are public and private goods. Hope that is clear. And next is substitute and complementary goods. మనం ఆల్రెడీ చూసాం, but a brief recap. Coffee and chai are substitute goods. Complementary goods, car and petrol are complementary goods. Then there are another type, normal goods and inferior goods. Normal goods, the goods whose demand increases when the income of the person increases. Normal goods are the goods where the demand of the goods increases if the income of the consumers increase. For example, Red Bull versus 50 rupees cheap energy drink. When my income increases, I'll demand more Red Bull because I can afford a better quality energy drink. But when my income is low, I would rather buy a 50 rupees cheap energy drink, right? So with increase in income, if the demand also increases, those type of goods are called normal goods. Next, inferior goods. With increase in income of a person, the demand of this good falls down. In the same example of Red Bull and 50 rupees cheap energy drink, right, like say Hell or Predator or whatever, when my income increased, what am I doing? I'm going and buying Red Bulls. I'm not buying 50 rupees drinks anymore. That means what is happening? This 50 rupees cheap energy drink is the inferior good. Or for example, cheap atta, right? Or cheap quality rice. Cheap quality rice. If my income increased, obviously I want to eat better rice, better atta, right, rather than eating cheap quality rice or cheap quality atta. So normal goods are the goods where if the income of a person increases, the demand increases. Inferior goods are the goods where the income of a person increases but the demand decreases. All right. Excuse me for the sound of early in the morning. Okay. When there are next type of goods, when the price of a good increases, the demand of the good also increases. Especially these giffen goods are a subtype of inferior goods. Okay. For example, potatoes. During Irish famine, what happened is the availability of other meat, milk, eggs, this decreased. So supply tagnapuru, the prices increased. We'll discuss how that happens and why that happens very soon under law of supply. So even though the prices of potatoes are also increased because these families cannot buy milk, meat, and eggs. These families used to buy more of potatoes because they're the cheapest, readily available, rich in calorie source of food. Even though they're cheap and the price increased, because the family's income is so low that they cannot afford meat or eggs, ఆ రిమైనింగ్ పైసలతో కూడా they used to buy two or three more potatoes, so that even though the price is increasing, the demand is also increasing. Those type of goods are called giffen goods. This is another subtype of inferior goods itself. Then there are webbing goods. When the price increases, the demand increases. Sir, there's a posh clothing brand. What is it? AX, Armani Exchange. Also, there is iPhones, right? And also there is Gucci, however they pronounce it. సో ఇట్లాంటి గూడ్స్కి ఏమవుతుంది, ప్రైస్ ఎక్కువ ఉండడం వల్ల డిమాండ్ కూడా పెరుగుతుంది, బికాస్ పీపుల్ ట్రై టు షో ఇట్ ఆఫ్ యాజ్ అ స్టేటస్ సింబల్. దీస్ టైప్ ఆఫ్ లగ్జరీ గూడ్స్ are called Veblen goods. And the next type of goods are consumer goods and capital goods. Consumer goods are the goods that are ready for consumption. That is, they are in the final form. They're ready for consumption. For example, a fan. There, it is ready to give me some air, which I'm lacking very much. Number two, capital goods. These are the goods that are used to produce these final goods. For example, a machine that makes copper coil around the iron item, that makes it a electromagnet that makes the fan rotate, or simply a machine that can cut and bend the steel sheet into the fan wings, right, so that I get a fan at the end. So capital goods are goods that are used to produce other goods, be it consumer goods or other capital goods, okay, or other intermediary goods. GDP చదువుకునేటప్పుడు విల్ టాక్ అబౌట్ వాట్ ఇంటర్మీడియట్ goods and all these frequent repeating అనుకో. So the next item is merit good and demerit goods. So when these type of goods are left to the market forces, okay, merit goods are under consumed. For example, fruits, for example, meat. People eat less protein, people eat less fruits if they're left free. And there are some demerit goods when it is left to the market. Demerit goods like alcohol, like tobacco, pan. These are the demerit goods that will be over consumed in a market when they are left in a free market, right? So merit goods are the goods that does good to us. Demerit goods are the goods that basically harm us, but we want to buy them. Okay, going back to our story, Mananku now will understand what made this poor rich guy sell his $10,000 worth car for mere $100. Why? What is demand? What is supply? Let's understand what is demand and what is supply as promised. Is why the car is being sold at 100. To understand this, we have to understand what is demand and what is supply in a market. So here again, we all get it out. What is market? Right. So what is market? But before getting to know what is market, I want you to introduce another small concept called central problems of economics. What are central problems of economics? These are nothing but there are few questions like what to produce. I'm sorry for the sound. Please excuse me. I'm sorry for the sound. Please bear with me for today. I cannot do anything because if I go and stop, it will lead to a religious conflict. But so yeah, Karl Marx said religion is the opium of masses. So every religion. So bear with me for the sound for today. Let's continue with the topic: the central problems of economics. What to produce and how much to produce. These are the questions any economy faces. How much to produce? How to produce? We'll see. We'll see what it is. How to produce? For whom to produce? These are the central problems of economy. What to produce? For example, I have little uranium, sir. తవ్వుతుంటే దొరికింది. సో యురేనియం తీసుకెళ్ళి నేను టూ టైప్స్గా యూజ్ చేయొచ్చు కదా. ఒకటి న్యూక్లియర్ ప్లాంట్ పెట్టి ఎలక్ట్రిసిటీ జనరేట్ చేయొచ్చు. రెండు న్యూక్లియర్ వెపన్ తయారు చేసి పాకిస్తాన్ తలకాయ పైన వేయొచ్చు. ఐ హ్యావ్ టూ ఆప్షన్స్. సో వాట్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్, వెదర్ ఐల్ ప్రొడ్యూస్ a uranium plant, or how much to produce, how many plants should I produce, or how many bombs should I produce to destroy Pakistan in entirety, right? So this is a problem that every person have to decide, every nation have to decide. And problem number one, what and how much to produce. Problem number two, how to produce. Whether am I using labor, that is men, providing more employment. This is called labor intense production method, labor intense way, or whether I am producing using capital goods or machinery. This is capital intense way. So how to produce? A nation has to decide whether they have to give more jobs in the production process or introduce more technology in the production process. That is problem number two in an economy. And problem number three, for whom to produce, sir. So based on for who we are producing the goods, we can fix a market price for the goods. For example, let's say I'm producing a bicycle, right? So this bicycle needs some iron and steel to manufacture this. Or I'm producing a sickle for the farmers. So for whom am I producing? Either for the farmers or for the kids. Or even if I'm producing bicycle, I'm producing using cheap quality steel so that the farmers can afford it. Is my techniques labor intensive or capital intensive? How how high are my how high is my cost of production? All right. So how much I will place the price of this bicycle at, whether 2 lakhs or whether 2000, right? For whom to produce is problem number 3 in an economy. We now have studied what are the central problems of an economy. So these are some questions based on who decides answers to these questions. Markets are divided into certain types, right? Okay. సో ఇప్పుడు పైన మనం అనుకున్న క్వశ్చన్కి, ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, వాట్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్ అండ్ హౌ మచ్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్, ఫర్ హూమ్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్, హౌ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్, ఈ క్వశ్చన్కి, ఈ సెంట్రల్ ప్రాబ్లమ్స్ ఆఫ్ ఎకానమీకి డిసిషన్స్ గవర్నమెంట్ తీసుకుంటే, దట్ మీన్స్ ఇఫ్ గవర్నమెంట్ ఈస్ కంట్రోలింగ్ ద చైన్ ఆఫ్ డిస్ట్రిబ్యూషన్ అండ్ ప్రొడక్షన్ ఇన్ అన్ ఎకానమీ, then the market is called socialistic market, right? But if government is not interfering in deciding what to produce, how much to produce, and for whom to produce, but the price signals in the market and the demand and supplies equilibrium is deciding what to produce and how much to produce and for whom to produce, then that market is called a free market, right? So what is communist type of market, socialistic market, then there is communistic market. Then what is communistic market? Communistic is market is nothing but socialistic market on steroids. Here in socialism, the government decides what to produce, how much to produce, and for whom to produce. In communism, the community, the people together by themselves will decide what to produce, how much to produce, for whom to produce, slowly making the state powerless and useless. Basically, state sloga dissolve అయిపోతుంది. There is no need for state as such in communism. The people themselves collectively will own collective property, will collectively decide what to produce, how much to produce, for whom to produce, how to produce, all those questions. So socialism is when given steroids, it turns into communism. So extreme form of socialism is nothing but the communism. So these are the types of markets: socialistic markets and free markets. Then there is also another term, laissez faire. That means leave it alone, leave the market alone. Government, please don't interfere in the market. ఇక్కడ వాట్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్, హౌ మచ్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్ అండ్ ఫర్ హోమ్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్, ఈ ప్రైస్ సిగ్నల్స్ డిసైడ్ చేస్తూ ఉంటాయి కదా. సో ఇవన్నీ డిసిషన్ తీసుకునే దానికి ఎకనామిస్ట్స్ ఒక టర్మ్ వాడతారు, దాన్నే ఇన్విజిబుల్ హ్యాండ్ అంటాం. సో దే సే దట్ ఇన్విజిబుల్ హ్యాండ్ ఈజ్ రెగ్యులేటింగ్ or deciding the questions in the free market, right? So now it's time to understand what demand and supply is. Market దగ్గరికి ఎందుకు వచ్చాం? Go back a little bit. We're talking about why this guy, oh my god, sorry for the sound. So yeah, we understood markets because we have to understand what is demand and what is supply in a market, right? So we have understood types of market. Let's start with demand. Demand is the quantity of units of goods and services that the consumer or the customer is willing to buy and also is able to buy, not just willing but also is able to buy at different prices in a given period of time. That is what demand is. Maybe I should write it down for you. It is quantity of goods and services that consumers are both willing and able to buy at different prices in given time. That is what demand is. So what are the factors that determine demand in a market, right? Let's see the factors that determine demand in a market. Number one, price of the good. It determines how much of the good is demanded. Number two, income of the consumer. Number three, consumer income ఉంటేనే కదా కొంటాడు, ఇన్కమ్ లేకుండా ఎలా కొంటాడు? Price of related goods. We've seen already substitute and complementary goods. Then we've already seen tastes and preferences, future expectations, right? Status symbol కోసం కూడా కొంటాం. Government policies, monetary policies will also affect demand. Population, how much more population or how much less population will also affect demand. Seasons and weathers will also affect demand. How does seasons affect demand? Chai and coffee sales go high in rainy and winter seasons. Also in rainy and summer seasons, umbrellas get more sold, and whether you know it's cold, you eat something hot. It's hot, you eat something cold, so on and so forth. So these are the factors that determine demand in the market. So let's go and study what is law of demand. So yeah, the law of demand. All things remaining constant. That means ceteris paribus is a Latin phrase that means all things. What all things? We've seen the tastes and preferences, the price of the substitute and the complementary goods, the government policies, and 10 other factors that influence demand. If they remain constant, if they remain constant, that is ceteris paribus, if the price of a commodity increases, demand falls. If the price of a commodity decreases, demand increases. Right. So, what does that mean? Let's see in a graphical format. Let's call it quantity demanded. Let's call this price of goods and services. So, as up we go from 0 to 100, the price increases. From 0 to 100, the demand increases. Right. So, what happens? For example, let's understand with an example. Let's say we are getting a pen for rupees 10 right now, but all of a sudden there is an offer and the same pen is offered at 2 rupees per pen. So what we will do, we'll buy more pens because the price has fallen. So if the price falls, demand increases, but at the same time the same 10 rupee pen now costs, let's say, 1000 rupees. Will you buy this pen? Absolutely no. What is happening? If the price is increasing, the demand is collapsing or falling. Why? Because obviously, why would you buy a pen with that cost 1000 rupees when you can buy a pen that costs 10 rupees? Maybe wait a little bit more, or buy a lot of pens earlier, right? So, like said, if all things remain constant, when price increases, demand decreases. When price decreases, demand increases. This is what law of demand states. This is represented in a curve where on the y-axis price of the goods are represented, and on the x-axis the quantity demanded is labeled. Let's see here at price, let's say 100, this is 150, let's say at this point at price 100, the quantity demanded is, let's say, 2. At price 2, the quantity demanded is, let's say, 90. Right. So when the price is 2, the quantity demanded is 90. That means when the price fell, the demand increases. This is what law of demand curve looks like. There is another concept within the law of demand, that is movement along the curve. What is movement along the curve? Okay. So like we said, at price P1, being that P1 is, this is at price P2, provided that P1 is greater than P2, the quantity demanded for P1 is Q1. The quantity demanded for P2 is Q2, provided that Q1 is less than Q2. So what is happening at P1? Due to the change of price from P1 to P2, the quantity demanded is also changing, that is decreasing. So the movement is along the curve. So if price changes, movement happens along the curve. Only if price changes, movement happens along the curve, up or down. If the price falls, the quantity demand increases. If the price raises, the quantity demanded decreases. Right? So the next topic is shift of curve. This happens when non-price factors like taste and preferences, price of the substitute or complementary goods, income of the consumer, if these factors that give demand changes, then shift of the curve happens. Let's understand with an example. Let's say this is curve A, let's call this curve B. Okay, so at a price, this is P1, this is P1 because it is P1. The price is same. Remember, the price is same. The price is same. But here, the quantity demanded is Q1 and Q2. The quantity demanded is changing. So what is happening here? Okay, so if income of a person increased, let's assume the income of a person increased, and let's say he's demanding a quantity of maybe potatoes, right? So he wants to buy more potatoes, but at price 1 his income was I1. At price 2, his income was I2. Income 2 is way greater than income 1. Let's assume that. So, what is happening here? Because the income of the consumer increased, even at the same price, the quantity demanded increases. That is exactly why the curve shifts to the right. Is it clear? సో ఏం లేదు, ఒకటే ప్రైస్లో కూడా ఒక పర్సన్కి ఇన్కమ్ ఎక్కువ వస్తుంది కాబట్టి, ఇన్కమ్ పెరిగింది కాబట్టి అదే ప్రైస్లో ఎక్కువ గూడ్స్ కొనగలుగుతున్నాడు. ఆ ఎబిలిటీ ఉంది. డిమాండ్ అంటే ఏమనుకున్నావు? విల్లింగ్గా ఉండాలి, ఎబిలిటీ కూడా ఉండాలి. ఇంతకుముందు ఇన్కమ్ తక్కువ ఉంది, వాడికి విల్లింగ్ ఉంది కానీ ఎబిలిటీ లేదు. ఇప్పుడు ఏమైంది? ఇన్కమ్ పెరిగింది, విల్లింగ్ ఉంది, ఎబిలిటీ ఉంది. సో ఎక్కువ డిమాండ్ ప్రొడ్యూస్ చేస్తున్నాడు మార్కెట్లో. సో at the same price he is demanding more. What is happening then? Because the income increased. Again, shift of the curve happens when non-price demand determinants or demand factors are changing. Right? Non-price ante price tappa migitha anni, like government policies, like income of the consumer, cost of the related goods like substitute and complementary goods, etc. Right. So now we understand the shift of the curve. Shift of the curve పాజిటివ్ ఉంటుంది. అదే ఒకవేళ వాడి ఇన్కమ్ ఉన్నట్టుండి తగ్గింది అనుకుందాం. సో at the same price he cannot buy any quantity here, right? Or if the income is too much reduced, he cannot buy even single quantity, maybe he can buy half quantity. But let's say so at same quantity, at same price P1, because his income is reduced, he is demanding lesser quantity than Q1, which is Q3. So you understood, the demand can go The shift in curve can happen in both ways, that is both positive and negative ways, right? I'm sorry for the very rough diagram. So yeah, the shift of curve can happen because of change in non-price factors of demand. If income increases, he can demand more. That means the curve shifts upwards. If the or right side, if the income decreases, he can demand less. That's why the curve shifts left side. So at the same price, because his income decreased, he's demanding lesser quantity. We see at the average price, he's demanding QA. If the income increases, he's demanding QB. He's demanding more quantity. Q3 is more. As we move on the right, the quantity demanded increases. Right? So what is supply? Supply is the quantity of goods and services that producers are willing to offer at different prices at given time. That is supply. What are the factors that determine supply? One, price of the good itself. Number two, price of the raw materials or the inputs or factors of production. We'll see what are factors of production. Let's see it. Wait, give me 1 second. So what are factors of production? Factors of production are nothing but land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship, which are used to produce a product, which are used to supply or manufacture a product. These are factors of production. We need land to establish a factory, we need labor to work for us, we need capital, that is money or capital goods, to produce final goods or intermediate goods. We need entrepreneurship to earn profit. These are the factors of production. And these factors of production will give, land will give what? Rent. Labor will give what? Wages. I mean, we pay wages to labor, we pay rent to land, we pay interest to capital, we pay profit to entrepreneur. So as these are factors of production, these are cost of production, because we are hiring some land and we are paying some rent to the land, because we need land to establish a manufacturing unit. So we need labor, we need capital, we pay wages to labor, we pay interest because we are taking a loan or capital, we are paying profit for the person who is giving ideas or sharing ownership, right? So supply also depend on cost of raw material. What is raw material? It is a factor of production. So supply also depends on cost of production. Next, it depends on technology. How efficiently can the machine produce? Making it, the more efficient the machine is, the less the cost of production, less cost of production the owner will have to bear, right? For example, a machine takes 100 kilos of cotton to make, let's say, 50 saris. 50 saris. But the same 100 kilos of cotton in an efficient machine will make 70 saris, right? So when the tech is efficient, the cost of production, because by using the same amount of raw material you're producing more, that means the cost of production is lowering. Next, it is dependent on government policies, how much taxes, especially Indirect taxes, how much indirect taxes government are putting, they are indirect. Let me give a small brief, but we'll discuss what are tax, what is direct, what is indirect in its entirety. Very few After very few lectures. So as of now, indirect taxes are the taxes where incidence of the tax is different from the impact of the ట్యాక్స్. అంటే సింపుల్ వర్డ్స్లో ఏంటంటే గవర్నమెంట్ ఏం చేస్తుంది, కంపెనీస్ పైన ట్యాక్స్ వేస్తుంది. నువ్వు అమ్మే ప్రతి దానికి నాకు 28% 12% ఇవో ఉంటుంది. వీడేం చేస్తాడు, వాడి ఎంఆర్పిలో దాన్ని యాడ్ చేస్తాడు. ఎంఆర్పిలో యాడ్ చేసి కన్జ్యూమర్స్తోనే కొనిపిస్తాడు. సో గవర్నమెంట్ ట్యాక్స్ పెంచితే ఏమవుతుంది, ఎట్ ద ఎండ్ ఓవరాల్ ప్రొడక్ట్ యొక్క కాస్ట్ పెరుగుతుంది, రైట్? సో హై ట్యాక్సెస్ ఉంటే ఏమవుతుంది, ఇట్ ఆల్సో డిటర్మైన్స్ ద సప్లై. సో ఏమవుతుంది, ఓవరాల్ కాస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద ప్రొడక్ట్ ఏమవుతుంది, పెరుగుతుంది. ఇందాకేం చదువుకున్నావు, ప్రైస్ పెరిగితే ఏమవుద్ది, డిమాండ్ తగ్గిద్ది కదా. డిమాండ్ తగ్గుతుంటే ఏమవుద్ది, ఎవడు కొనట్లేదు, ఎవరు కొనకపోతే ఏమైంది, $10,000 కార్ $100 అమ్మినట్టు అమ్ముకోవాల్సి వస్తుంది కదా. సో బేసికలీ ఇఫ్ ద ట్యాక్స్ ఇస్ టూ హై అది అవుతుంది, కానీ ప్రస్తుతానికి మన ట్యాక్సెస్ అంత హై లేవు. బట్ యాజ్ అన్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఐఎమ్ సేయింగ్, ఇఫ్ ద ట్యాక్స్ ఈజ్ గివెన్ ఆన్ ద ప్రొడక్ట్, దట్ ఈస్ ఇండైరెక్ట్ ట్యాక్స్, కంపెనీస్ పైన ఇస్తే కంపెనీస్ ఆ ట్యాక్సెస్ని మన పైన ఇస్తాయి. దట్ ఈస్ ఇన్సిడెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ద ట్యాక్స్ ఈజ్ ఆన్ ద కంపెనీస్, బట్ ద ఇంపాక్ట్ ఆఫ్ ద ట్యాక్స్ వీ ద కన్జ్యూమర్స్ ఆర్ ఫేసింగ్. సో ఓవరాల్ ఏమవుతుంది, ప్రైస్ పెరుగుతుంది, సో డిమాండ్ తగ్గుతుంది. సో ఏం చేస్తారు ప్రొడ్యూసర్స్, సప్లై తగ్గిస్తారు. సో దట్ ఈస్ హౌ ఇంక్రీజ్ ఇన్ ట్యాక్స్ అఫెక్ట్స్ ద సప్లై. How the price of good affects the supply, we'll shortly see, right? How the cost of production applies the supply. If the cost of production is too high, they can buy less number of goods. So what happens, supply decreases because raw material తక్కువ కొంటారు, దట్ మీన్స్ సప్లై కూడా తక్కువ చేస్తారు. టెక్నాలజీ ఇందాక చూసాం, కాస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ప్రొడక్షన్ తగ్గుద్ది, సో వీడేం చేస్తాడు, ఎక్కువ సప్లై ఇస్తాడు, సో సప్లై పెరుగుద్ది. నెక్స్ట్ also the local laws. For example, strict labor laws ఉన్నాయి అనుకోండి, వాడికి ఇంత వేజ్ పే చేయాల్సిందే, ఇంత మినిమం వేజ్ పే చేయాల్సిందే అనుకోండి. అవి మినిమం వేజ్ హై ఉందనుకోండి, ఏమవుతుంది, కాస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ప్రొడక్షన్ పెరుగుతుంది. అంటే ఈ కెన్ అఫోర్డ్ లెస్సర్ ఫ్యాక్టర్స్ ఆఫ్ ప్రొడక్షన్, దట్ మీన్స్ హీస్ ఏబుల్ టు ప్రొడ్యూస్ లెస్ ఆర్ సప్లై లెస్, రైట్? నెక్స్ట్ last is supply shocks. Supply shocks may be because of natural calamities. ఒకడికి కాటన్ కావాలనుకోండి, ఇందాక శారీ మ్యానుఫ్యాక్చర్కి ఆ కాటన్ నుంచి వాడు ఏం చేసుకోవాలి, శారీస్ తయారు చేయాలి. కానీ వరదలు వచ్చాయి, న్యాచురల్ కలామిటీ, కాటన్ క్రాప్ మొత్తం పోయింది, దేశంలో ఉన్న ఆల్మోస్ట్ అంతా కాటన్ పోయింది అనుకోండి, ఏమవుతుంది, ఆబ్వియస్లీ వీడు సప్లై చేయడానికి కష్టపడతారు కదా, సో సప్లై తగ్గుతుంది. సో దిస్ ఈస్ ద ఫ్యాక్టర్స్ that determine supply. Let's see what are the factors. One, the price of the good itself, ఇది ఎలా ఇప్పుడే చూద్దాం, in law of demand. Next, price of raw material or factors of production. Next, or cost of production. Next, the technological advancement. Next, government policies like taxation, subsidies, etc. సబ్సిడీస్ అంటే ఏంటో కూడా చూద్దాం మన తర్వాత. ట్యాక్స్ పెంచితే ఏమవుతుంది, ఇండైరెక్ట్ ట్యాక్స్ పెంచితే వాడికి ఎక్కువ బర్డెన్ పడుతుంది, సో ప్రైస్ పెరుగుతుంది. ప్రైస్ పెరిగితే ఏమవుతుంది, డిమాండ్ తగ్గుతుంది. డిమాండ్ తగ్గితే కొనడానికి ఎవరు లేడు, సో ఏం చేస్తారు, సప్లై కూడా తగ్గించాల్సి వస్తుంది. అదే ఒకవేళ సబ్సిడీస్ ఇచ్చారనుకోండి, గవర్నమెంట్ సబ్సిడీస్ ఇస్తే ఏమవుతుంది, ప్రైస్ తగ్గుతుంది ఆఫ్ ద ప్రోడక్ట్. ప్రైస్ తగ్గితే ఏమవుతుంది, డిమాండ్ పెరుగుతుంది. డిమాండ్ పెరిగితే ఏముంది, సప్లై మ్యాచ్ చేయాల్సి వస్తుంది. సో ఎప్పుడైతే మీరు whenever you're talking about supply, think from the producer's angle, think from the producer's perspective. అప్పుడే మనకి ఒక క్లియర్ అండర్స్టాండింగ్ అవుతుంది. మీరు ఇంకా కన్జ్యూమర్ సైడ్ ఆలోచిస్తున్నారు అనుకోండి, మొత్తం తేడా కనిపించేస్తుంది, రైట్? whenever you're thinking from talking about supply, think from the producer's angle, right? So strict laws ఉంటాయండి. You are a producer. What happens if there are strict laws? Again, మినిమం వేజెస్ ఇవ్వాల్సి వస్తుంది. లేబర్ యూనియన్స్ బ్రేక్స్ అంటారు, అదంటారు, ఇదంటారు. సో మీ కాస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ప్రొడక్షన్ పెరుగుతుంది. కాస్ట్ ఆఫ్ ప్రొడక్షన్ పెరుగుతూ ఏమవుతుంది? యూ ఆర్ ఏబుల్ టు అఫోర్డ్ లెస్. యూ ఆర్ ఏబుల్ టు అఫోర్డ్ లెస్. దట్ మీన్స్ యూ ఆర్ ఏబుల్ టు సప్లై లెస్. Right? Natural calamity, same. So yeah, these are factors of production. We already seen what it is. So now let's come to law of supply. What is law of supply? It states if what does law of supply state? Ceteris paribus, that means the rest of all the factors remain constant. If the rest of paribus, if the rest of all the factors remain constant, all right. What does law of supply say? Sorry. Ceteris paribus, that means all things are remaining constant. If the price of the product rises, then the supply increases. Like I said, please look at it in the producer's perspective. Please look at it in the producer's perspective. When the price of the commodity falls, then the supply decreases. All right, this is the quantity demanded, quantity supplied. So this is the quantity supplied, and this is the price of the commodity. Let's say again, let's say that here at price, let's say 10 rupees, the quantity demanded, the quantity that we, a producer, like we are a producer, and we would supply is, for example, let's say 5 units. ఎందుకు? ఎందుకంటే 10 రూపాయలు ఉంది కదా. 10 రూపాయలు ఉన్నప్పుడు నాకు ఎంత వస్తుంది మార్జిన్? దాంట్లో తక్కువ వస్తుంది. సో మార్జిన్ తక్కువ ఉన్నప్పుడు నేను ఎక్కువ యూనిట్స్ ఎందుకు అమ్మాలనుకుంటా? వాట్ ఈస్ ద లైక్ మోటివేషన్ దట్ ఐ విల్ హ్యావ్ టు సెల్ అండ్ మోర్ గూడ్స్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్, అదే ప్రైస్ ఒక 100 రూపీస్ అయింది అనుకోండి. సో నౌ what will I do? Dude, my profit margin is so damn high. Let me sell as many units as possible, right? So when the price is increasing, what is happened? As a producer, right, as a supplier, as a producer, I want to supply more and more goods at higher and higher prices, right? This is what law of supply states. Law of supply states, again, when the price increases, supply increases, we tend to supply more, and when the price decreases, we tend to supply less. As a producer, whenever you're talking about law of demand, think like a consumer. When the price increases, do I buy it or not? We don't buy it. Whenever we are talking about law of supply, think like a producer. When the price increases, will I want to supply more? Yes. When the price decreases, will I want to supply less? Yes. So that is the crux of this law of demand. Then the next thing is movement along the curve. In law of demand, again, the same thing. It is the price of the commodity, it is the quality or quantity supplied, excuse me. So at price P1, I would supply less quantity. At price P2, I would supply more quantity. Q2, that means if P2 is greater than P1, provided that, and Q2 is also greater than Q1. So at higher prices, I supply higher quantity. That means as price increases, this movement of price 1 to price 2 and quantity 1 to quantity 2, this movement is because of price change only. So movement along the curve happens only when the price is changing, not other factors, ceteris paribus. So the next thing is shift of curve. What happens? Why it happens? Let's see. Okay, this is curve. Let's see when the shift of curve happens. Shift of supply curve. All right. Let's say the price of the commodity is at P, right? So all of a sudden we adopted better technology, so efficient technology. So for the same cost of production, we are for the same cost of production we are getting more product, right? That means we are supplying more. అదే అనుకున్నాం కదా ఇందాక 50 శారీస్ 100 kgs కాటన్తో ఒక మిషన్ 50 శారీస్ తయారు చేస్తుంది. అదే 100 kg కాటన్తో ఇంకొక మిషన్ 70 శారీస్ తయారు చేస్తుంది. సో ఈ ఎక్స్ట్రా శారీస్ 20 శారీస్ ఏంటి బయట పెట్టి అమ్మమ్మ అంటే సప్లై చైన్లో పంపిస్తాం కదా. వి ట్రై టు సెల్ బికాస్ వీ వాంట్ టు మేక్ మోర్ ప్రాఫిట్ విత్ ద సేమ్ అమౌంట్ ఆఫ్ వాట్ raw material, same amount of what cost of production. So with the same amount of raw material and the same amount of cost of production, we are producing more because we adopted more efficient technology. So whenever we adopt a more efficient technology, what is happening? The curve shifts rightwards. Why? Because at the same price, the price is not changing, sir. At the same price, we are able to produce and supply more quantity, right? The cost of production remains same, right? The only thing is ನಾನು disco excuse me for the noise. So yes, coming back here the price did not change, sir. We are putting the same cost of production, we are buying the same 100 kilos, but we adopted a new technology. We replaced our old technology with new technology. Now what is happening? With the same 100 kilos, we are able to produce 70 saris. That means we are able to supply more. The quantity supplied, did it increase or not? Yes, it did. At what? At the same price level. That is shift of supply curve to the right side, right? So what happens in scenario 2? Now government increased taxes on fuel, let's say. So government increased taxes on fuel for any crop or for any uh, product. We have to take this 100 kgs, right? We have to take this 100 kgs to our factory. We cannot process it there in the field. We have to take it to the factory. How are we taking it to the factory? We have to hire a lorry, a truck. This lorry will cost something for us. So when the fuel cost increased from 10 rupees to 100 rupees, what is happening? The lorry or the logistics cost increase. So if we have 100 rupees and we are able to buy 80 rupees worth, uh, let's say we have 120 rupees and we are giving 20 rupees to the logistics and 100 rupees, 1 rupee per kg for the cotton. Let's assume those are not real values, but if the fuel price is 100 rupees now, what are we getting? We have to pay 100 rupees to the logistics. Now we are only left with 20, and with 20 we are only getting what? 20 kilos of cotton. With only 20 kilos of cotton, how much can we produce? Do the cross multiplication. Let's say uh, 10. We are only producing 10 saris. So what is happening? The supply decreased, but at the same price. The quantity supply is what happening? The quantity supply is decreased. At the same price point, the price did not change, sir. The cost of production did not change because we only have 120 rupees to spend to produce, right? So the supply decreased. Ceteris paribus. I'm not sure, sir, banks and loans and but we're assuming ceteris paribus, and we're assuming only the factors of demand, factors of supply, non-price factors of supply. But if you're getting a loan, then you'll have to pay the interest again. So at the same price, the quantity supplied is moving right and left based on whether there are subsidies or whether there are more taxes or whether the fact of production is same but the efficient technology we are using all of a sudden. So these are the things. This is shift of curve, supply curve. Next, let's see market equilibrium. Market equilibrium is a phenomenon where quantity demanded equals to quantity supplied. Quantity demanded equal to quantity supplied. So let's look at this curve. It is where the supply curve and the demand curve meets, right? So this is the supply curve, this is the demand curve. So what is happening here? Let's say at price P2 and at price P1. So at price P1, this is the supply curve, right? And supply curve, it is supplying quantity S1. We have to note here, okay, we have to note here quantity S1. But at price same P1, right? Demand, this is the demand curve, right? This is the demand curve, this is price P1. So quantity demanded is QD1. Here QD1 is on the right side, that means it is greater than supply. That means what is happening? The demand is excess, the excess demand is happening, right? Excess demand. So let's take it price P2. At price P2, this is the demand curve. The quantity demanded is QD2. Let's say quantity demanded is QD2. And at price P2, this is supply curve. This is supply curve. The quantity supplied is QS2. So which is on the right side? QS2 is on the right side. So what is here? What is happening here? The supply is more than the demand. The supply is more than the demand. There is excess supply in the market. But what is equilibrium? When quantity demanded is quantity supplied, that is when we reach equilibrium. Basically, producers are willing to sell exact quantity of the products at exact prices that the consumers are willing to buy, right? That is market equilibrium. So look at here, let's assume that this is point P. There is point P for both of them because the lines intersect. And here what is happening? The quantity supplied is QS, the quantity demanded is QD. It is same. So QD equal to QS, quantity demanded is equal to quantity supplied. This is what market equilibrium is. This is where market equilibrium takes place. Again, it is the amount of goods and services that the producers are willing and able to supply, and at the same time the buyers or the consumers are also willing and able to buy at the same price and the same quantity. That means the quantity demand equals to the quantity that is supplied. So with this, we have completed our microeconomic basics. So now we will understand why a $10,000 car is being sold for $100. The reason is simple. Recall the factors of demand. What are the factors of demand? One, income of the consumer. Two, price of the good. So if the income of all the consumers after the Great Depression of 1929 plummeted because everyone lost, the banks have bankrupted, the factories got shut down, inflation raised, so purchasing power, we'll see what inflation and purchasing power later on, but yeah. So during the time, income of people have plummeted, drastically reduced, right? Because there is low income. Now if the price is high, let's say $10,000, we've learned what if the price is high, then the demand is low, That means if this poor rich guy puts his car for sale at $10,000, what is happening to the demand? It is very low. But the same guy, if he's putting his car for mere $100, when the price decreases, what is happening to demand? It is increasing in the market. So he is the probability of him finding a prospective buyer is more because he's putting his price at such a low level. The demand can be decently high even though the income is low of the people back then. Because of the Great Depression, $100 is too low for a too high luxury car. Right, this is why he is trying to sell the car at 100 rupees, because he's a investor. That means he has basic idea of economics, right? So with this, we have done and completed the basic concepts of microeconomics. This is done. Oh, this is done. So next, we have to see the basic concepts of macroeconomics. For today, let's complete the inflation and let's get done with the class. Even though the syllabus explicitly does not mention inflation, national income, these are the previous year questions from mains. This is 2010 ka question, 20 ka question, potential GDP, gross domestic product, consumer price index, a concept of inflation, unbanked to unbanked banking, even though the syllabus doesn't mention banking and RBI. So inflation again savings rate, high food inflation, RBI. The syllabus explicitly does not mention all this, but we are expected to study. So yeah, the last subtopic of the day, that is a subtopic of the macroeconomics we are about to start, inflation. So before going to the subject matter, again, let's go back and look at a story. After World War II, somewhere in Berlin, on 30th April of 1945, our dear Hitler died. That put an end to World War II. Not after World War II. I mean, it's basically both. Hitler died so that the World War II ended. World War II almost ended. That's why Hitler committed suicide. So in 1945, the World War II came to an end. So after Hitler died, what happened is, because of the World War II and high cost of war, inflation hit the hardest on Hungary, a country. What happened in Hungary when the inflation is so high? One one bread costed 5.85 billion pengos. Pengos is a currency like a rupee of India. Pengo is for Hungarian. You can see here, after World War II, Hungarian currency pengo lost its value in a couple of months. Its highest denomination by mid 1946 was what is 10 to the 10 raised to the power of 20, right? And what is this guy doing here? He is sweeping the currency, sweeping the $10,000 bills or 10,000 pengo bills or 1 lakh or even 1 crore or even 10 crores, because the value of currency right now has decreased so much. Because of what? After World War, you can see this, what the lady is doing with the currency, because the currency became worthless. Again, a proper picture of guys sweeping the currency. So what happened? The prices of a bread is $5.8 billion. So can you buy with a mere 10,000, 20,000, 1 crore, 2 crore, 5 crore, 10 crores? No, we cannot buy. No matter how much money we throw at that bread, we cannot buy that bread with the little money we have. Prices reached too much that the papers of the currency have lost their value. See, the prices raised so much that the purchasing power of the money declined drastically. Money became basically worthless, right? So what is inflation? We know $5.8 billion bread. That means inflation is increase in price of what? Of a basket of goods and services over time. Okay, it can be gradual, it can be fast, it can be hyper. That's why we call it hyperinflation. We'll see what they are. But yeah, increase in price of basket of goods and services over certain time is called inflation, right? So what causes the inflation? In Hungary, what happened? Because after World War II, it had to pay war reparation in form of goods, not in form of currency. So what the Hungarian government did, it printed money to give to the local producers, and it gave goods to foreign countries, right? So what is happening when you print money? When you print money, there is too much money. There is too much money chasing too little goods. When there is too much money, I have 1 crore, you have 1 crore, everyone in the world have 1 crore. What is the value of 1 crore? There is no value for that 1 crore, because maybe I have to buy a water bottle and there is only 5 water bottles, and I'll say I'll give you 20 lakhs. Give me the water bottle. Someone who is more thirstier than me will come and say, I'll give you 1 crore, give me the water bottle. So what is happening here? Because too much money is chasing too little goods, the price of the goods is increasing. So, based on what causes inflation, there are two types of causes or two types of inflation. One is demand pull inflation, two is cost push inflation. Let's see what demand pull inflation is. Pull inflation is when in a market the demand rises first and it pulls the prices of the goods and services. How does it happen? When the aggregate demand is in a market is greater than the aggregate supply, what is happening at full employment rate? What is happening? Everyone has money now because we are all are employed, right? So the demand for a product is more, so I'm willing to pay more for the same product. He's also willing to pay more for the same product, like the water bottle I told. So what is happening? Because the demand is more than the supply at full employment, demand goes up and it also pulls the prices. So it is called demand pull inflation. Basically, what happened in Hungary, the same thing, too much money chasing too little goods, right? It is demand pull inflation. What causes demand pull inflation? Let's see. Rise in household consumption. We all have extra money to spend, we are consuming more. That means what we are doing, we are increasing the demand. I'm going to buy 25 kilo basta of rice. Another guy behind me is going also coming to buy. Okay, we are fighting among ourselves that I'll pay more, I'll pay more, I'll pay more. What is happening? There is enough demand in the market, so price also increases. Increase in government spending. What is happening when the government spends more? For example, let's say government is trying to construct a new metro line in Hyderabad, right? What it has to do, it has to employ a lot more labor. It have to employ a lot more labor and pay wages to this labor. And what is happening here? These labor right now before employment have nothing to spend in the market. Right now they have money, so what these people are doing, these people are also coming and demanding goods in the market. And so what is happening? Demand is increasing, and thus it is also pulling the prices. That means inflation is happening. Raise in private investment. Even then, whenever the private invests, I'm putting up a company. I cannot run a company by myself. I'm giving employment. I'm demanding raw material. I'm demanding intermediate goods, I'm demanding capital machinery, I'm demanding entrepreneurs. So whenever a private institute also invests, it is also raising the demand by itself in the first place, and also raising the demand by creating more employment, right? So what happens when the demand increases? Obviously, it pulls up the price. Next, easy monetary policy. We'll see what monetary policy in chapter RBI and banking, but let me give you a small brief here so that you'll not have FOMO. Monetary policy is a policy that the Central Bank of India follows to keep to basically keep the price rates stable. That means to keep the inflation stable, right? What it does, it increases or decreases the interest rate of which it lends to other banks. For example, RBI, when it is lending to another bank, if it increase the interest rate by 50 percentage, less and less number of banks will try and take money. So when less number of banks are taking money, less and less number of consumers will be having money. Also, these banks, because they took interest, because they took at 50% of interest rate, because they took at 50% of interest rate, they will also give to the customers at 60% of the interest rate. They have to have some profits for working capital, etc., etc. So who is going to get loan at 60% of interest rate? The demand for loans decrease. That means investment decreases. That means spending decreases. So what is happening? Overall demand in the market is decreasing, right? When does this happen? When the interest rate is too high. If the interest rate is too high, we call it tight monetary policy. Monetary policy is the policy that RBI follows, right? Easy monetary policies on the other hand is giving at loans at a low interest rate. This is the basic understand up to this, and we'll have a deeper discussion when we come to the chapter RBI and banking. So easy monetary policy, that means money is easily available for the people. That means more and more investment is happening, more spending is happening. More spending means more demand happening. More demand happening means it goes up and it pulls the price and inflation. So exports boom. So export boom, here two things happen. Scenario one, we're exporting too many goods because the demand is all of a sudden too high from the foreign market. We are starting to match the demand. So what is happening here? The supply in the domestic market has reduced, right? The demand in the foreign market increased. So what we are doing, we are exporting a lot of goods. We are exporting all the goods. That is what export boom means, right? We are exporting so many goods. That means the goods and services in our domestic country is decreased. That means supply is decreased. What happens is supply is decreased and the demand is constant. Right? The price increases. On the other hand, whenever we are exporting, we are receiving foreign currency, we are receiving in dollars, we are making more profits. More profits means we can spend more, we can demand more in the market. We are spending more in the market, we are demanding more in the market, right? And next, there is cost push inflation. We have seen demand pull inflation, then the next is cost push inflation. This happens because of cost of production increase. So, for example, I'm a producer and I am producing, let's say, water bottles, water bottles. But for this, I have a land and I'm using electricity to purify this water. So suddenly 10 rupees per unit increased to 1000 rupees per unit, sir. What is happening? How much loss can I take? Can I still sell water bottle for 20 rupees? No, sir, I cannot. So if it is taking 100 instead of 10 rupees per unit, if the government suddenly increase the electric charge to 1000 rupees per unit, what is happening? My cost of production is increasing. I have to purify water, only then I can be selling water bottles in the market. To purify, I have to use electricity. To use electricity, it is 1000 rupees per unit. Now my total cost of production has gone from 10 rupees to 1000 rupees. I cannot be selling water bottle at 20 rupees where my cost of production is 1000 rupees. So what I have to do? I have to put 1020 rupees. My cost of production is 1000 and my profit is 20. So what is happening? Inflation, sir, inflation. So cost of production increases, inflation increases. So what is happening here? First, first what is happening? First, my cost of production has increased, sir. This is the cost of production. And then what happened? Because the cost of production increased, I cannot bear it. What am I doing? I am pushing it towards the customers, towards the consumers. That is why it is called cost push inflation. So producers push the extra rupees raise to the consumers. What causes cost push? Inflation. Obviously, increase in cost of production. Increase in cost of production means increase in wages, increase in raw material, increase in indirect taxes. All this increase in cost of production. For example, increase in indirect taxes. For example, government all of a sudden increased the taxes on water bottle. Government said pay 100% tax on water bottle. So now 20 rupees water bottle is 40 rupees, sir. My manufacturing cost is 10 rupees. My profit is 10 rupees, but I have to sell it at 40 rupees. If I pay government this extra 20 rupees, what is I am getting? I'm getting nothing basically. So what will I do? Even though the incidence of tax is on me, I am transferring the impact of tax to the consumers, right? So the consumers are paying more. More means the price has increased. The incidence was on me, but the impact was on the consumers, on the final product which is in the market, which is 40 rupees. So indirect taxes increases, inflation increases. Supply shocks, what happens? Like we discussed, natural calamities comes, all the cotton fields are gone. Now how will I produce saris, right? I cannot produce a lot of saris. I have little, too little supply, and too many people demanding the too little goods. What is happening again? Inflation. So here, have a careful observation. When I said much money chasing too little goods, I meant too many producers are trying to buy too little raw materials, so that first the raw material cost increases, and because the raw material cost is increasing, I will push the cost towards consumers. That is what cost push inflation is. Imports inflation, for example, in India, during the recent Russia Ukraine war in 2022, if I'm not wrong, the food inflation increased. Why? Because of the crude oil prices. The crude oil prices increased. That means logistics cost increased. Logistics is what? A part of cost of production. Because of my cost of production increasing, my total value or the total cost of the final good has increased. Because of that, India faced a little bit high inflation in 21, 22, 23, 22, 23, I guess. Verify the number please, I'm not sure. So we have seen the types of inflation based on the cause of the inflation. Then the types of inflation based on the rate. If the inflation rate is less than 3%, it is called creeping. If it is between 3 to 10%, it is called walking. It is double digit, then it is called galloping. Then it is extremely rapid, like 10 to the power of 20 in case of Hungary, it is called hyperinflation, sir. Based on scope of the inflation, there are two types: one, headline; two, core. Headline inflation is nothing but CPI combined. We'll see what CPI combined very soon, but trust me, Inflation is the overall inflation in the market. What is core inflation then? Core inflation is nothing but headline inflation minus inflation of volatile goods like food and fuel. ఎందుకు సార్ కోర్ ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ ఎందుకు తీసుకొచ్చాం? హెడ్లైన్ ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ గానే ఉంచేస్తే అయిపోతుంది కదా. ఇన్ హెడ్లైన్ ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ బికాస్ we calculate overall inflation, we also calculate the change of prices in food and fuel. These are too volatile because if the fuel prices will get impacted because of Russia-Ukraine war, because of some other war, because of lack of transport, or because of natural calamities or shocks or supply shocks, whatever. This keep changing up and down. These also keep changing up and down because India is still a rain-fed nation. One more flood, the crop is gone. Too much sun, the crop is gone. Right? In Telangana, a lack of urea, the crop is gone. Volatile shit. We cannot predict how much a kg onion will be. We cannot predict how much a kg tomato will be anymore. Today it's 20 rupees, tomorrow it's 200 rupees. So, to negate the extreme changes of these volatile goods that change the prices frequently up and down, we take that off and we come to a core inflation. That is the same headline inflation minus the inflation of volatile goods like food and fuel. Right. There are some special types of inflation. For example, stagflation. What is stagflation? Positive growth rate inflation, increase in prices, plus high unemployment, plus stagnant growth of the nation. It is even worse because the prices are rising. We are unemployed. We don't have money to buy. Sir. The prices are rising. We are unemployed. The unemployment is high. People don't have money to buy. The growth is stagnant. Right? This phenomenon is called stagflation. The next type of inflation, it is deflation, that is negative inflation, or decrease in prices of goods and commodities over time is called deflation. The next is disinflation. Decrease in growth rate of the prices. So what is decrease in growth rate of prices? That means inflation is still happening, sir. For example, today the inflation is 6%, but tomorrow the inflation is 5%, but day after tomorrow the inflation is 4%. What is happening? There is inflation is positive, inflation is there, but the inflation percentage is decreasing. Right? The inflation growth rate is decreasing. What happens in deflation? The prices only decrease, sir. Directly negative 6%. The entire prices of the basket of goods and commodities total prices, it got decreased by 6%. That is deflation. Inflation is decreasing, but prices are increasing, sir. That is disinflation. What is reflation? Especially after economic recession. We'll see what recession is, what boom is, etc., very soon in business cycles. But after economic recession, that means after economic slowdown, that means after GDP growth rate is reduced and economy is not so vibrant, then the government will come and try to boost the economy by spending more. Right? By increasing the government spending, by encouraging the privates to spend more, invest more, by offering incentives, subsidies, right? Tax cuts, special economic zones. What happens when this happens? When this happens, investment increases. That means demand in the market also increases. That means what happens? Inflation is also increasing. That means from negative or from disflation to positive inflation, especially after economic slowdown, because of the policy change of government, it is called reflation. Right? The next is Qflation. Qflation is nothing but increase in prices of one commodity where the other is stagnant or decreasing. That is Qflation. Then there is next item of inflation, it is called shrinkflation. You see this guy, Mr. Trump, is holding a TikTok, tick tack, tick tack, and on the other hand, he's holding another tic tac. Both costed same, but this one costed 20 rupees at 2000. This is costing 20 rupees at 2025. The price is same, sir. The price is same, but the size has decreased a lot. What does that mean? It is shrinked. The volume of the product shrinked. The quantity of the product we are getting is much smaller for the same amount of price. You can remember that with the 5 rupees dairy milk chocolate or 5-star chocolate as well, right? So there is one last type of inflation, bear with me, right? This is kind of interesting. This inflation is based on whether the basket of goods and commodities are exchanged between business to business or business to consumers, right? WPI is called wholesale price index, CPI is called consumer price index. Let's start with WPI. WPI is wholesale price index. We said what is inflation? It is a basket increase in prices of basket of goods and commodities. In WPI, we have certain goods and commodities in the basket. To be precise, 697. So each item of the basket has specific weightage. For example, fuel and power has 14.91 percentage of weightage. For example, manufactured goods has the highest weightage, 64.97. Then primary articles like rice, wheat, pulses, all these have different weightages. So all these items with these weightages, when the prices increase, then it is called WPI, wholesale price index. What is this used for? What is the objective? The objective is to track the price movement in B2B, the business to business market, the wholesale market. It only calculates the inflation of goods, only it doesn't calculate the inflation of services. It is published monthly by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, published by Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Department of, for Promotion of Industries and Internal Trade, then Office of Economic Advisor. So you all must have got it out. I've mentioned something as base year here. So what is a base year? Base year for WPI is 2011-12. Let's understand what a base year is first. Okay. So what did we say? We said inflation is increase in prices over a period of time, right? So let's say the price of a basket of good. Let's consider a single good. Let's say a chocolate now is 10 rupees, right? And after some time, the same chocolate is 100 rupees, right? So I'm saying increase in price over a period of time is inflation, right? So from when did the price increase? So at the basket of good or this chocolate, of which year am I comparing the present year to, right? To get the inflation. For example, if this is 2010, right, and this 10 rupees is 2010's price, and this is 2025's price, right? So what am I doing? I'm comparing today's price with 2010's price, right? Only then I'm saying that it is increased, right? From when I have to be able to answer, right? Not just increasing price, but at what time the price was low, at what year of the same product or the same good you're comparing the price to, all right? So this 2010, which we are comparing to the present year, is called base year. Base year. So base year are the year is the year that we use as reference or comparison point for prices. So I'm comparing the prices of now or last year or coming year to the base year prices of the same goods, same basket of goods and commodities. So the base year for WPI is 2011-12. That means we are going to compare and see how much price did all the 697 items in this basket increased from 2011 and 12 ప్రైజెస్ ఐ మీన్ 2011-12 ప్రైజెస్తో కంపేర్ చేస్తే ఈ బాస్కెట్లో ఉన్న ఐటమ్స్ అని ఎంత వరకు లైక్ ఎంత ఎన్ని రెట్లు పెరిగాయి లేకపోతే ఎంత పర్సంటేజ్ పెరిగింది అనేది మనం కంపేర్ చేసి ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ ఎంత అని ఫైండ్ అవుట్ చేస్తాం. So the base concept of base year is done, and next we also seen what the objective of WPI is. Let's see. CPI, Consumer Price Index. The base year is 2012. There are two types of CPI: CPI rural and CPI urban. Rural lo use chese goods and services basket ని ఇందులో పెట్టేశారు, ఐటమ్స్ ని ఇందులో పెట్టారు. అర్బన్లో ఎక్కువగా యూస్ చేసే ఐటమ్స్ని ఇందులో పెట్టారు. కంబైన్ దెర్ ఆర్ 6 నాట్ ఐటమ్స్. ఇక్కడ వెయిటేజ్ ఇచ్చారు. ఫుడ్ అండ్ బెవరేజెస్కి 45%, పాన్ టొబాకో అండ్ ఇంటాక్సికెంట్స్కి 2.38%, మిస్లేనియస్ 28%, housing 10.7%, especially for the urban. Okay, so the examples, certain examples of the basket loan, commodities and fruit, cereals, all this stuff, house rent, water charges. Here services is also considered. House rent service, water charge service, it is not a product, right? Service is also considered. What is its objective? Its objective is to track the price movement, whether the prices are increasing or decreasing in the retail market, right? Both goods and also services are calculated. The increase in prices of services is also calculated. Published by Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation by Office NSO, National Statistical Office, published monthly. Okay, so earlier we used to have different types of classification in CPI: CPI agriculture labor, CPI industrial worker, CPI rural labor. But now we have shifted from this type of classification to CPI rural, CPI urban, and CPI combined. CPI combined is what the headline inflation is. When I'm talking about headline inflation, I mentioned CPI-C. CPI combined, that means the basket of commodities of both rural and urban, how much have it increased, is equal to CPI from the base year. Yes, we still use CPI industrial workers to fix our DNS allowance for our government employees. Even when we get the DA of central government is 55%, the DA of state government is 29.5% or something. Revanth anna penchuta annadu. We don't know when that is going to happen. So DNS allowance is the percentage of money you will get on your basic pay, right? So as long as we are talking about inflation, we have seen the negative sides of the inflation. Is inflation all bad? Is it always bad? To that, let's see a picture, right? What is this? This is a thyroid gland. Sir, ఉన్నటువంటి థైరాయిడ్ గ్లాండ్ ఎందుకు వచ్చింది? జస్ట్ ఫర్ రిఫ్రెష్మెంట్ కనెక్ట్ చేస్తా చూడండి. Thyroid gland happens because of enlarged thyroid gland hyperthyroidism. అది ఎందుకు మనకు అనవసరం. ఐరన్ డెఫిషియన్సీ మైట్ కాజ్ hyperthyroidism, which in turn causes this phenomenon or whatever. So basically iodized salt యూస్ చేస్తే అది తగ్గిద్ది. సాల్ట్. సో ఇన్ఫ్లేషన్ ఈజ్ లైక్ సాల్ట్. If the salt is too little, the economy is bland. I mean, the taste is bland. We don't spend a lot. There is no progress in the economy. There is no demand. If the salt is too much, the dish is ruined. A pinch of salt, specifically 2% to 6%, is a perfect spot. Why? Why is it good? Why is 2% to 6% is good? And why am I saying 2% to 6%? We'll slowly get to know. But why is 2% to 6% good? Number one, presence of demand. Okay, let's say what happens if there is demand in the market. Did you remember this guy who is selling 10,000 worth car for $100? Why? Because there is no demand in the market. So when there is no demand in the market, what is happening? The prices of the goods and services is falling too much. That means low demand in the market is an indicator of a bad economy, right? But high demand increases inflation, right? If inflation is low, that indicates that demand is also low, right? There's no one demanding the goods and services. So basically there's no increase in prices, right? So whenever there is a demand in the market, that indicates people are spending. Yes, people are spending. That's why there is demand in the market. How are people spending? Because there is enough money supply for them. How is there enough money supply? Because maybe everyone is employed, maybe people are saving, right? Maybe people are spending. And what happens to savings? Investment is happening. Investment, if it is a private person, what is happening? Again, demand is increasing. Again, employment is getting created. So all these good things are happening. When the inflation is at 2 to 6 percentage. So whenever there is demand in the market, first it itself is an indicator for a vibrant or good economy, right? Second, it directly reflects the purchasing power of the people. That means the income of people. If it is good, demand is good, right? Third, it shows if the demand is there, it encourages people to produce more, especially the producers, right? If there is demand only, no, we produce to match, we supply. It encourages us to produce more. So what we do, we establish companies, we establish manufacturing units. Again, what we do, we provide jobs. Again, what these guys do, these guys provide demand. It is a beautiful cycle. So not just the presence of demand. So presence of demand itself is a good indicator, and it is also good. That means if inflation is there, that means it indicates that there is presence of demand. If demand is there, that means all these good things happen. Number two, it reduces burden of debt. Okay, what happens here? Carefully listen. For example, I borrowed 100 rupees today and I have to repay after 1 month. But my interest rate is 6 rupees, 6 percentage, right? After 1 month, I have to pay 106 rupees. But at the same time, the inflation is 6 percentage. That means what is happening? Inflation is what? Increase in raise in basket of goods and commodities. So the same basket of goods and commodities I will get for 100 rupees today. After a month, I'm getting the same basket of goods and commodities for 106 rupees, right? So what am I doing? I'm taking 100 rupees. That means if you look at it in the terms of basket of goods and commodities, I'm taking 100 rupees worth basket of goods and commodities. After 1 month, I'm taking the exact same basket of goods and commodities, but with a higher price. But it's giving me the exact basket of goods and commodities, right? So for this 106 rupees, whoever has borrowed, whoever have given money for me, and I have written this 106 rupees to him, right? And he was able to buy 100 rupees worth of goods and products as a basket, and now for 106 rupees also he is able to buy the same basket of goods and commodities. That means, did he gain any extra money? He did not. Why? Because he's able to buy, even though he's putting 6 rupees extra, he's able to buy the same old quantity of the goods and services. That means the purchasing power of money, what happened, decreased. That means, as a net result, how much interest did I actually pay him? Zero. Yes. I hope you understood this, but if you did not, please let me know in the comments, or whenever we hold up a live session, I'll try to explain it. So, yes. So, presence of demand, like we said, no demand, this is what happens. Enough demand, good things happens. So, how much is a pinch of salt that makes our economy vibrant, like a dish taste good? I mentioned 2% to 6 percentage. Why did I mention 2% to 6 percentage? Because the RBI tries to maintain inflation at 4% plus or minus 2 basis points, exactly in this range, using monetary tools, right? It's the same old thing. So what is RBI? Like, when the crash happened, we blamed Federal Bank, right? Like, Federal Bank is the central bank of USA, RBI is the central bank of India, right? Like, the Federal Bank, RBI is the central bank of India. So with this note, the chapter inflation is completed, and we'll see what RBI is and why is it trying to maintain the inflation, and how is it trying to maintain the inflation at 4 or 4 plus or minus 2 basis points, or 200 basis points, or 2 percentage. Why and how? Why? Because they consider this range good for economic overall growth. Let us see how the RBI is trying to control the inflation, and what RBI is, and a little introduction of RBI in the next class, the monetary policy of RBI in the next class. Until then, see you, and also see you next time in the chapter monetary policy and RBI.